Welcome to Rocket Ship, the home of epic React Native content. I'm
Woo.
Simon Grimm, creator of Galaxies.dev, and today's guest is Jack Herrington, who some of you might know. Welcome, Jack. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, happy to be here. Just so fun to be with you.
Jack has the Blue Collar Coder YouTube channel. I wanted to check upfront. Are you at 200k subs already?
Oh, so close. You know, still working on it. It's interesting. Like we were talking to other YouTubers, and there's been definitely a decided drop off in viewership just across the board, specifically in like the kind of content tutorial, the tutorial space.
Yeah. I feel it as well. We're gonna have to do something different, more exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of motion in like the news space, people like that, which I kind of understand. You know, you want to go to like a kind of news sports and like get everything. Yeah,
I try to do like both. So it's honestly like talking from creator to creator. Just covering the news is easy content.
I know,
like,
right?
It takes like oh this is new, half a day. Let me talk about it. Let's edit it together. Boom, and you get the most views. Then you do like a tutorial, work 2 weeks on it, and you get like a couple of hundred views. So
right? Yes. Yeah, that's why I've been doing this TC39 stuff, because it's like it's somewhere in the middle there. It's like kind of cheap-ish content. I try to do stuff that's different from the docs, but you know, maybe more in depth. But it's still pretty lightweight.
It is. So for people who don't know you, you're, to me at least, a Next.js expert.
Okay.
You run the Front End Fire podcast with TJ Van Tol and Paige Niederinghaus. Honestly, this is one of my favorite podcasts, next to like My First Million or something health related. I said it before. Jack and the other two hosts have just such a great vibe. It's refreshing every week, and yeah. I should do ads for your podcast because I'm really so excited about it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's
yeah,
great.
It's great. It's just like hanging out with old friends, and we came up with the idea for the show. We originally did like React Roundup, and then we didn't kind of like the format, and we weren't really happy with like the guests and all that, and we're like, you know what, we should just like do our own thing and do a news show, and it's just been great. It's been really fun.
It is. It shows that you're just having fun.
Yeah.
And you're also, I think you're one of the like people with the most creative YouTube thumbnails. I still remember. I think once you once. This is not saying they're amazing. I think they're better clickbaity titles, but you're super creative. This one story is still stuck with me. I think for. When you did a video about the framework, you actually went to a pool house to record a video where it was like,
yes. Okay, so oh my God, there's actually a story behind this. So it is a local dive pool place. I mean, it is a dive. It is in like the worst strip mall you can imagine. It is a super dive. So I show up, and my wife was with me, and we got all this camera gear, and I'm like talking to like the person behind the booth, right? I'm like, do you
what is this going to be?
If we like, right? Like, are you gonna like produce some kind of like weird kinky thing?
You need a couch or something?
And they're like, I'm like, okay, so can we shoot can we take a pool shot here? And they're like, nobody's ever asked that before, but I guess. And they're like, I'm like, well, will you charge us? And they go, what do you want to charge us? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, nothing. So I ended up like giving them like buying, you know, like Coke or something like that, and then giving them like a massive tip. And I'm like, you know, but it was fun. It was really like, I'm actually taking Jason Linksdorf and some other friends out to play pool tomorrow night. So like, it's a thing. Like we like pool.
So,
and it's funny that like the one framework comes out and it's like a pool theme. I'm like, heck yeah, we're doing this.
Oh, super creative. But we're not talking about one, at least not.
Well, it's still React Native, though, right?
Yeah, we might get to it at the end. Okay. Yeah, but we're going to tackle React Native because you already said up front before the recording, you've been working with React Native over the last couple of weeks a bit more. And I also noticed in your content that every now and then there's a little Expo video sneaking in. And you're the Next.js expert. You have your Pro Next.js course going on. So I thought let's talk a bit about the intersection of Next.js and Expo, how they get closer to each other. Probably cover also some essential topics in which you might be an expert. You just led, what is it called? A critique in the Rising Stars survey. At least you wrote about the state management stuff and all these things. So a lot of topics we could get into, but let's start quickly with your journey. Like, how did you get into React Native? Was it long ago? I can't exactly remember what your story was.
kind of gone into and out of React Native a whole bunch of times, which I think is probably like most folks. But literally, I'm one of those guys where it's like something shows up and I'm like, I'm trying this. This is really cool. And so I was trying out React Native back when it was first released, or at least first released publicly. And I think I was at Walmart Labs at the time, and I was doing like a kind of a health app for Walmart, which seems odd, but like, kind of like a nutrition thing, like you could scan, get nutrition information and that sort of stuff at the store. And yeah, it was great. And was it pre-Expo? No, maybe. No, yeah, definitely pre-Expo. But like,
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I've been kind of been into it out of it. The one thing that frustrates me the most about React Native is it always seems to like bit rot really hard. Like I'll make an app 1 month and then I'll come back to it 2 months later. And it's like, I try and just rerun it. And it's like, no, you got to like rebuild the dependency. Like you got to get awful. Like, what is going on? Like, why is this way?
Is that stuff better with Next.js?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, I've got applications that I built months previous, and yeah, no, that it's totally stable. There's just something weird in particular about like React Native, and I don't know what it is.
I mean, I can absolutely second this. I mean, my application from yesterday isn't working today, and I have no idea. It's yeah.
Wow. That's like turbo mode bit rot.
Yeah, I mean, I want to ask you something else, because if you tried it in the past and you're trying it now, I want to know how your experience has changed. Probably let's leave out that bit rot because that is like some randomness going on. But how has your experience with React Native in general changed? Like if you remember back to, I think, you said it was pre-Expo, so probably like 5-ish, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the huge, right. Yeah. And the huge change would be Expo, would be like the ability to like very rapidly just, run in a simulator on the device and have these like packaged bundles for the camera and all the rest of it. I mean, that was all just like, if you wanted a barcode reading camera, you found an NPM module and then you manually did the CocoaPod stuff yourself and you manually did the Android stuff and all that. And it's like, there was documentation and that was great. But the Expo stuff is literally just like, just plop it in there and you're good. And like Expo's got pretty much all you want. I mean, in most cases, I think.
Yeah. And if there's something missing, you can always drop back to pre-build and like add any kind of module. So I don't see the point of some people still arguing against it. Like, I don't see why should I do it without Expo at this point?
Right. I mean, from my perspective, but my perspective is a little bit naive, I guess. But I mean, when it comes to consumer apps, what do you need? You need like camera access. You need like local access to, I don't know, GPS or whatever, tilt and pan and swivel and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, like that's all there. Like,
yeah, absolutely. So you said over the last couple of weeks you've been a lot into Expo. What have you been tinkering on?
A lot into React Native, actually. Actually, these are not Expo apps, actually. And it's because what we're doing is we're working with Module Federation in that space. So have you ever heard of Module Federation?
I did, yeah. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, so the idea is that you have these deployed modules that are, remote to the application, and then the application can consume them at runtime and import them just as they would like any other module. It just like happens to be like remote. And the really cool thing is you can kind of change that remote, and the application essentially updates, like at least in this case, like on the next run of the application at runtime, which is so great. Like if you are a company doing like e-commerce, for example, and you want to go and put up a different header that would have, some new discount stuff in it. Well, I guess that's more of a web thing, but like maybe like change like the cart experience or something like that. You actually can do that without actually doing any kind of updating with the App Store or any of that. You just like deploy a new module and you're up and going. And the other cool thing is if you have multiple apps, then they can all depend on the same modules, and then you can update them in one place and they change everywhere. So that's great.
So I think I actually wrote a little JavaScript tutorial about this in the past, but that was using something like Capacitor or React and Angular stuff. And I still remember that the module federation stuff was actually pretty wild, and it worked quite good at that point in like web projects. By the way, I see a lot of resemblance to like RSC stuff, and we're gonna maybe get into like that in a second.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that it actually worked well in React Native. So how does it work? How did you made it work?
So it's a company actually kind of behind it. It's ByteDance that's really interested in this. So your TikTok folks. And there's also a small company called Zephyr that does basically a dashboard around this and a whole bunch of services around this.
How's that spelled? With Z?
Yeah, ZEPHYR. It's a strong wind. Zephyr.
Yeah. I know it from a game. I think a character called.
Oh, there you go.
It's like an old
Breath of the Wild, Zephyr.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. How are they
and they take part of the hosting, or?
Yeah, they help with hosting. So, like the number one question with module federation is how do you version the modules? How do you roll back? That kind of stuff. And so that's what they manage. You basically, once you've deployed, it can tell you which app is using which versions and how they all connect together. You can do instant rollbacks, all kinds of fun stuff like that.
And in your app, I think the only time I saw something about this was that CallStack, the other one of the React Native agencies, had like a package for making module federation work in your React Native app. Did you use a package from them to include it in React Native, or?
I worked with them at a recent on-site for a customer that was using this because I was kind of tangentially involved in it. And yeah, no, they're really into it. I don't know if they've released any like helpers yet with it, but I am kind of using a setup that they built for it. And that's been very helpful because there are some tweaks. There's some patching and things like that you have to do. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting thing. Like I hadn't experienced patching because on the website we just don't do that, right? If a module doesn't work, we don't patch it.
Really?
And but taking that knowledge of React Native and bringing it back to the web and saying, no, it's actually like if you got a module that like just has like one bug in it that you need to fix, here's this thing you can do, and that's kind of cool. But yeah, so I was using their setup for React Native, and it sits on top of RSPack, which is something that the ByteDance folks are behind, which is a very fast bundler. And then it also has support built in for module federation.
Interesting. I'm going to have to get into this. But I mean, you already said about the benefits, like when you change something easily, you can do this remotely. That would now make it 3 different possibility to do this. So we got EAS updates from which you can change your JavaScript bundle. We got the module federation, and we now got RSCs in React Native as well, which they all do kind of the same. I wonder in which case we're going to use which. So have you tried RSCs in React Native? It's still under developer.
I have a video on it.
Oh, I haven't chased.
No, it's cool. It's fine. It's fine. I did a video. Boy, there was something. It was closely proximate to when it was officially released, and I actually worked with Evan on it, and that was great. That was it. It's really cool. I'm just really excited about the potential of that.
So you use RSC with Next.js probably for a couple of months or year at this point already?
Ever since it rolled out, yeah.
Is there any difference to React Native now that you've used them in React Native, or are they pretty much the same?
That's a good question. I think they're, they're the same. I would say just kind of feeling wise, it feels very, very similar between those two.
I mean, that's good news for everyone coming from Next or going to Next. It's good if Expo is not the one child that's different. So if everything works the same. Actually,
there was something that I noticed just recently in Next that I was surprised. I'll actually go see if this is actually the same thing on native. So the thing is, I didn't know this about Next up until recently, or this is actually the JavaScript or the React framework underneath it. So you can have client components, right? Obviously, but you can also just have client functions. And yeah, right. Which is interesting. And then what you can do is like you can have an RSC that's rendered and sent out to the client, but it has and you can't like directly add a function to an RSC, right? To like an event handler to an RSC, like an on click, right? That's a dynamic component then, right? If you have an on click, you're a dynamic component.
Right.
What we can do is you can assign a client function. So it's defined in another function with the use client pragma at the top. And that can be an event handler. And then what happens is on the client, it brings in that RSC payload, all the flight stuff that is, server compiled. And then it just at the very last second attaches those event listeners to that particular like button or whatever. And so you can actually get RSCs that have some behavior because of this. And it'd be interesting to see if that actually works on React Native as well. I'm not sure what I'd do with it. At least on the website, one of the, like, I was doing some performance stuff with RSCs to try and see if, like, finally, like, to do the comparison that everybody's wanted for a long time, which is like, are RSCs actually faster than, doing SSR, right? And it turns out they are. It was great. But, you might still want some interactivity with these things. And this is a way to kind of like take RSC components and still make them interactive at a certain level.
Yeah, when I tried RSC, I quickly in Expo, I quickly also noticed that when you have like the use server directive, you can't use certain things. For example, you also can't use style sheet in there, as I think, or just
right.
like a limited set. And then weird. I just like included a component that had use client at the top, and in there I could actually use the style sheet. So I think that's probably the combination you were talking about, like use server and use client. And I don't know what's going on under the hood, how this works, but it's probably just like you said, like it's pulling in the RSC and then in the last second adds the use client component internally in like the payload, and then it just magically works on the device.
Can I ask the world's most naive question, to be honest?
Yeah.
Why do we need style sheets? Like, why? I mean, it's just an object. Like, why not just use an object?
That's a good question. So, if you would ask Theo, he has a pretty strong opinion about that. This is quite good. He was on the podcast as well, and we talked about this.
Okay.
So, on the web, you can do everything with styles. Really, you got access to everything. And with style sheet, it's actually limited to a specific set of features, properties, and things you can do.
Sure.
Which also limits like things you can break. It's just limited. Like not everyone in the company can do everything, which is sometimes a good idea. So I think that's why it's limited. But why it is how it is, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, it has to work cross-platform and all that stuff, but
yeah, but I can just like, I'm literally like mechanically, I can go take an object and put it in my style tag, and it just works.
Yeah.
Like, and that
I don't know if there are any
I
think there are no performance gains. I think I talked with Jamin before, and they're doing something else at Infinite Red as well.
Okay.
Which is let's talk about styles as well in a second. But let's quickly wrap it up for RSC. So you've used them for some time in Next.js, as I said. How do you feel in general about RSC? Because for me, I've used mostly Expo and React Native. This is still very new. For us, it's like developer preview. And can this actually work with native? And why should I use this with native? But you have some more experience coming from the web and like working with RSC actually. Like, how does it feel? What are your thoughts about this? Is this good? Is this bad? And where does it really improve the code of an application?
So RSCs are essentially like the closest React is going to get to an islands architecture. I don't know if you've heard of an islands architecture.
Yeah, I love Astro.
Yeah, right, exactly. But like, think about it, the cool part about Astro is like they never send any JavaScript unless you actually need JavaScript for that particular interactive part of the page, which is great, which is what we want. But that's not how React has ever worked. React has this hydration thing. And so you go and you compile, you basically render the page on the server, and then you bundle up the HTML. So that's obviously important for search engines, right? And then you got your JS. So that's what actually going to run the page. and then you got your hydrated data, right? So with old school Next, back in the pages router days, it would just, the hydrated data would just be whatever came out of get server side props or get static props, whatever the data is of the page. And then what actually happens on the client is that the application boots up. Next manages taking that persisted data and then giving it to the client component running on the actual client, and it reruns the whole app again on the client, gets everything up to speed, and then it gets a VDOM on the client, and it does a diff at that point between the DOM that was generated on the server, the actual HTML components, and the VDOM that was rendered on the client. And if there's no issues, then you're great. Everything's good to go. If there's some differential between those two things, and that's that hydration error that people randomly see here and there, where they've done they put in a date or something like that, and it's changed slightly between the client and the server, that kind of thing. So, okay, well, why am I getting into this? Well, the whole RSC thing is that you run those components only on the server. And then you take the VDOM, the result, you take the HTML from that, and you take a snapshot of the VDOM. And then when you send that, and they call that flight data. And then when they send that over to the client, you got the DOM, so the HTML, and it just pops up, boom, like it did before. And then when the app runs, instead of just going and getting the data, it takes this massive set of flight data, and it just bang, there's your VDOM. You're good to go. And the only components that it reruns are the client components. And so the speed up on a slow client, like on a slow browser or something like that, is actually like pretty impressive, depending on how many you use. So if most of your page is kind of staticky stuff, like on an e-commerce site, like, your description of it and, the variants and whatever. And like, it's all the data within the tabs is static, but all like the tab itself is the only thing. Tabs themselves are the only things that are interactive, right? You can segment it up such that the only components that actually run on the client are the client components. And if you have a slow commodity machine, there's a big win right there. And it's faster than old school Next, and it's faster than spas. So, and it's really a lot faster. So if you're a person who like freaks out about like render time on the client, like RSCs are going to be a thing you want to take a look at.
This is interesting that you promote for RSC the speed, first of all, and the performance gains of it, because some people say like, yeah, we got these cool components like the unified components now, and we can have API keys included and the backend logic. Yeah, sure. Like there are a lot of different benefits. But you specifically pointed out the performance. Which
that's only because I just made a video about this that I haven't released yet. So, but yeah, I mean those are cool benefits as well. But the performance one is something I just never really heard people say. It was always like, ooh, RSCs are faster. Kind of, and nobody would ever prove it. And I'm like, okay, no, actually, let's go and take a browser. Let's go and run the React profiler on this. Let's go and take a spa and see how fast it renders. Let's go take a Next app, see how fast it renders. Let's go take a Next app router app with RSCs and see how fast it renders. And the same exact page between those three things, at least in my example, was running 2x faster for RSCs.
2x?
Yeah, for the render time.
Wow.
Yeah. So like a render time, and that's the thing on a client, your render time could be 60, 70, 100 milliseconds, depending, or maybe 200 milliseconds, like based on the actual complexity of all those components. The more complexity in those components, the more things like theming or, registering event handlers or whatever, or any kind of like client side data manipulation that you're doing. That's all running on the client, and it can be very, very expensive. Like, so that if you can avoid that, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny that because the whole performance gains, I think, is something that probably won't affect React Native.
No, that's a total value prop for Native.
Yeah. I mean, there are different things that make RSC good. But the performance,
like what you were mentioning before, like the other part, the value prop, like you don't want to have access to your API keys in the back end, so you want to make this, reporting list or whatever that's going to show you all your transactions, right? So you hit the back end, you get your page. It has all your views and your text items and your layout and all that sort of stuff in it. But all the data was all compiled on the server, and accessed using its API keys. So now you don't have to do any REST calls. You don't have to have any of that logic. And if you want to go and change the formatting of the page or how it works or fix any bugs, you fix them on the server, you redeploy the server, and you're fixed, which is like, whoa, that's cool.
It's like using module federation, right? In that regard,
yes.
it's kind of the same, right?
Yeah. Very similar, very kind of similar sort of things. I'm trying to think of like, well, we mentioned version skew also, but then I guess that would be more around the lines of, well, is it? Yeah, no, actually, yeah, version skew is more like around the lines of like the server function stuff. So the EAS and
Yeah, I think I was worried before. Like you have a server, an RSC, and then it uses a client component that is probably not yet part of the app bundle.
That's a problem.
In that case, like you're gonna run into trouble. But I'm pretty sure Evan Bacon is gonna figure out something about that and how they made it with the fingerprint stuff. So you, as I said again, you're a bit ahead in terms of RSC usage in the Next.js world. In the React Native world, people are kind of skeptical about it. Whenever I post about that it's a big thing, they're like, I don't know, why should we use this? I don't feel like we're ever going to use this. Is it the same in the Next.js world? And has it changed over the last like half year, 1 year, while people started using this in their like actual projects? Or like what's the sentiment? Is this positive, negative? What's the vibe?
I think it's still pretty skeptical. I mean, to be honest, I've worked in big companies before. I worked at Nike. I worked at Walmart Labs. I mean, these companies do not change on a dime. Even your big FANG companies, I mean, they're working on frameworks that are years old, on code bases that are multiple years old. You're not going to get folks like just boom, switching frameworks, just like that or changing things. So, and that's, I would say, kind of a little bit of the problem with Next is that like there is an incremental adoption path. Like you can just promote a given route to RSCs and the app router. But I have, it requires like greenfield projects. And I think that's why we're not seeing as much. I don't know. I don't have access to like the Versal data or whatever like that, to see who's using what. But I will say it's been interesting to see like the other frameworks and how they're relating to RSCs. Like Remix is still, will they or won't they when it comes to RSCs? Not really sure. They keep like you ask them and then sometimes they're like, we've done RSC. Well, we want RSC, we wanted for a while, and then they showed up at the React Conf. They showed RSCs, but that's not ready for prime time. And then they get this like blog thing later that says like, RSCs are kind of harder than we thought they were. Maybe we need more thing. And like, okay. And then I talked with Tanner, and he's like, yeah, definitely going to support RSCs, but not right now. So yeah, I guess the only other framework that I know of that's like really barreled headlong into it and has been RSC from the start is Daishi Kato's Waku framework, WAKU framework, which is actually pretty cool.
I haven't used that one.
Not many people have, but it's very cool. It's actually maintained by some friends of mine over at Candy Code, and they're awesome. Love those guys. So and they need to see them really pushing the boundaries of like what this thing can do, because that's the thing. Like it's a core fundamental technology, this RSC support that's built into React 19, but the implementation of it is really up to the framework. And so like the Expo version of it could be different from another version of it. The Waku version of it is different from the app router version of it slightly. And, it's interesting to see how people have re-implemented it.
React 19 is, by the way, a good point we should come back onto in a minute. It's interesting because I was thinking that in the Next.js world, it had more adoption by now and that people would think better about it. But so it's kind of good to hear that you're struggling the same way the React Native community is struggling. But I think for Expo and React Native, it just opens really interesting scenarios. I mean, this whole like, the problem of native app is always like you build it, you get it through review, it's out in the world, and you can't do anything about it anymore.
Right.
And with RSC, you have like this window into the app of a customer, which you also kind of have with EAS update, but that's like swapping out the whole application under the user, under the hood. And this is like, really, we want to update this tiny card here on that screen or that view in that page and change the border, and let's do an A/B test here, maybe. I think it opens up really interesting use cases for React Native. So I'm excited to see. I mean, Evan is trying its best. Like this week when we record, he brought out a demo where he's using like the movie database with like server components, and you got like the loading states. And it really ties nicely into all the latest like React concepts. And I think he's going to push out more of these showcases just to show what's possible with RSCs.
Was it AI driven, his example?
That was the first one he showcased in like
React
Vegas. Yeah. Something where he like AI generated a component and then it was streamed back to the client, and that was wild.
It wasn't exactly that. I think it was AI invoked component. Like the component was pre-cooked, and then the AI just got to decide. What he showed was just the component deciding between different components, I think. And then I talked to him later, and he's like, "Oh, I was actually having it like build components out of primitives." And then sending that across, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. I think the intersection of AI and UI is going to get really interesting because from a customer perspective, I would love to have an app like my banking app, right? And instead of saying, and I want to be able to like use a bank's version of Siri or whatever and say like, I'm really interested in, I just heard pork bellies are going to do really well this year. You know, keep me up to date on pork bellies, and have it be like, you know, the dashboard would actually show like, okay, here's a pork belly graph versus, I don't know, carrots or whatever the competitor of pork bellies is. But, you know, like the AI could decide that and like change my app and customize it to me. And I really look forward to a world of like hyper customized apps. I think it'd be really neat. But maybe that's just me. Maybe other people are just like, I just want whatever it is. You know, just do it. I don't want to do any of that stuff.
That's a broader picture. Like the whole landscape of mobile applications is, some people is going to change, because with AI you can just generate your micro apps. Like I have this tiny problem, I go into bolt.new or Replit or whatever kind is on Vogue, I create my app and it's here and it serves exactly my purpose. And maybe we're going to see more of that in the future, and like the App Store concept will decline over time. I honestly can't predict this. I at the point right now, I don't feel like this is likely in the next 3 to 5 years. But we've seen crazy things with AI so far. Are you using any AI editor, by the way?
Yeah. Actually, I was just on a call yesterday with Codium. They're the folks behind Windsurf, and they're releasing something tomorrow or the day out. Well, so I don't know when this is going to be released, but the day after we're recording. So by the time you hear this probably will be released, which is some additional stuff on its Windsurf AI editor. So I've been trying Windsurf again. I kind of got into it. It didn't really seem to vibe with me. Like this is all it's a vibe, you know, like I didn't ever feel like I was vibing with my editor, but I vibe real good with Cursor. Like Cursor just seems to do what I want it to do. And it's like, oh, you're changing this, you know, you're adding another key here to this object. I'm going to go here, but you're doing it like 15 times. I'm going to like add it for you and think, oh, thank you so much. I was going to do that, but you just did that for me. And so I was vibing really well with Cursor, but I gotta say, they gave me like pro keys to Windsurf, and I was like, oh, this is very similar, which is, I gotta say, maybe that's not the smartest thing for them to do. It's like, you should, like, even in your non-premium plan, like beat the heck out of your competitors. Because like right now, I think like of the 3 big ones, like Copilot, Cursor, and Windsurf, I think at least most of what I'm hearing is like, ooh, Cursor. That's where people are happy. And it was happy, and I was happy until I went with Windsurf. But like, that's so weird. Like you've got these 3 things, and like this week, this one's good. It's getting back to being like package managers. It's like, wait, are you on Yarn or NPM or PMPM or all of the above? And it's like, well, I'm on whichever is fastest this week is what I'm on.
Yeah. I'm also on Cursor. I'm super happy. I tried Windsurf right when it came out, and I just didn't see why I should use it. Like, what's the benefit? I think at that point it was more like agentic, but then now Cursor is also adding this agentic feature. Like you can switch between normal and agent mode, and then the agent is doing. Yeah, I don't know why I should use Windsurf. I'm happy with Cursor.
Agentic is definitely like the buzzword of 2025. 100%.
Now already.
Oh yeah. Like if you're doing your startup play, you better be agentic if you want VC capital at this point.
Absolutely.
And it's not all that hard to do. That's the thing.
It is. Hard cut. Let's go back to a buzzword from last year. I think ShadCN is one of those, and I know you're a big ShadCN fan. And I heard you talk about in Front End Fire that you could now actually use ShadCN with React Native as well. I wasn't aware of that. Didn't you talk about that, or was it Paige?
Maybe it was Paige, because I was it. Well, ShadCN definitely gotten some interesting changes recently. They changed around their CLI, and you wouldn't think that would be that big of a deal, but it was actually.
What did they change? It was great already.
Well, okay, so what they did was they added the ability to so when you say like add button, so you do the npx ShadCN and whatever. Well, one, they changed the name of the module, which, by the way, F you, man, because I had honestly, I had tutorials with that.
I feel you.
And it's like, and you just changed that. And I mean, I get comments like, this no longer exists or whatever. This says it's deprecated. You're like, dude,
this hurts.
And like, oh man, are you kidding me? Anyway, whatever. So, but that, all that is, and then I go and I can literally contribute to this repo. And once they made the change. So you can do add button, right? And you get their stock kind of ShadCN button, which is just a thin wrapper around Radix, really, to be honest. That's a whole another thing about is ShadCN really copy pasta? And it's not. But what you can also do is you can just give it a URL. And that URL can have points to a JSON file. And the JSON file says, here's my code, here are my dependencies, yada, yada, yada. And it just goes and it takes all that and it smushes it into whatever project that you just did that on that ad into. Mm. And so what you can do if you are like if you're a UI infra company, infra team at a big company, is be like, hey, where you used to do npx ShadCN add button, you just use our button. And then it just brings it in and it integrates with everything else that's in ShadCN, but it's your customized button, or it's a new component, or it's your stock carousel or whatever. And it opens up just a world of possibilities, which I think are really, really cool.
Yeah, some projects just they always hit the nail. Mm-hmm. Vite is one of those as well. Everyone just loves the tooling. And ShadCN feels like everything they do, everyone just loves it.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be really cool to have this in React Native. I don't know. Have you used anything outside of Stylesheet in your projects lately, or?
I met a guy at Infinite Red's conference who was all about his basically Tailwind, Native Wind, the Native Wind stuff.
You met Dan Stepanov.
I think so. Yeah. I'm really bad. I'm dyslexic, so I'm really bad with names.
Did he wear jogging pants or something?
What?
He usually looks like that.
Oh. He was sitting down and I wasn't looking there. But anyway,
that sounds like him.
I thought that was cool. So, but I haven't tried it. Yeah, and it's actually, I think I did try it and it didn't work really well. And so if it didn't I tried their normal setup procedure and it had issues halfway through, and I'm like, nah, I'm not into that.
Yeah, I mean, you can use Tailwind by now with Native Wind CSS or Native Wind, so that's pretty cool. And he has a tool called Native Wind UI, which is basically like Tailwind UI. It's like pre-made components using Native Wind, and it follows also this CLI stuff like ShadCN, so you can add a overlay or something, and then it pulls in the Native Wind UI sources into your project. But it's partially paid as well. Yeah, it's definitely cool. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, many people use Stylesheet, and it's also okay.
Going back to your other point, way early on in our conversation, you mentioned what's changed for me and with React Native, and just the service area of React Native. I mean, it used to be just Android and iOS, boom, done, right? And now it's desktop and TV and web, and it's if you really want to go that way, back to the one thing, you can go and make yourself a universal app, which is pretty crazy. It's pretty cool.
This whole direction of universal apps is wild. I mean, a couple of years ago, this was still a concept, and with all the things Evan Bacon did with Expo Router and where Expo is heading, and with EAS hosting and API routes, and I think in one of my videos last year, I said that I mean, eventually they become a Next.js and Vercel competitor. And
yeah.
I mean, we now got the hosting part. The thing is, Expo is doing native great, like React Native and Expo. Vercel will probably never get there. Even if they add some sort of stuff to Next, you will never get a good native application out of that. However, the direction from React Native, there's also like from Meta, the React strict DOM stuff, which looked super interesting last year.
Terrible name, but yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Horrible. But it could be funny.
I was actually at the table with the React strict DOM guy, and I didn't know that he was the React strict DOM guy. And he just happened to bring up React strict DOM, and I'm like, I turned around, I'm like, that is the worst name ever. And he's like, thanks, dude. Like, sorry, man. Oops. Ouch.
I'm almost glad I'm not in those at those tables. Okay, well, but anyway, React strict DOM is a good idea, and I mean, universal React Native apps are a possibility at this point. They were kind of a joke a couple of years ago when you had React Native Web. It was like, this is better than Flutter Web, but it still sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know if do an export of your Expo project for the web. It's actually kind of good. Have you gone to the blog from Evan Bacon? Like, that whole thing is built with Expo and React Native, and just I couldn't distinguish it from like the regular blogs.
That's really cool, and it kind of freaks me out a little bit, actually. Like, because just as a mechanical development thing, I mean, you're going to have the browser, and you're going to have iOS and Android and maybe desktop too. I don't know how many variations you want, but you're going to hit save, and then all of this stuff is going to HMR at the same time, and it's like, whoa, if I change this thing over here, and then like, oop, no, hold on, I got to fork this now. So it's like you've got the I don't know, image tag dot, Android.tsx and image tag dot, whatever, dot web.tsx, or, all the different flavors. And is that good? And I just kind of like being more of an application developer, like somebody gives you, Figma mocks, and you're dealing with an entirely different designer from like, the mobile side of the house is probably like one designer, and maybe even like you got an iOS designer and an Android designer, and then you got the web designer, and you're this poor developer in the middle trying to be like, whoa, taking I just want to use Tailwind, and like, what?
Yeah, it's going to be challenging for sure. I was just thinking, like, we have API routes and that stuff, but eventually it would be cool to have like a full server included in that project as well. Like, from what I understand, those kind of API routes, whether it's Expo or Next.js, they're like edge functions, and they're you bring them up as server functions. So it would be cool to have like an actual server running. We can do things, but then we're probably going back to, what was the framework I last used? That was like the full stack frame, Meteor or something?
Meteor, yeah. Well, that was all WebSockets. That was its big claim to fame, was everything was WebSockets. So you get basically kind of like a Fireworks kind of thing. But, not Fireworks. Fireworks is the old like Macromedia image editor. Firebase kind of thing. So it's all live updating.
Yeah, but something like that included in my project, maybe that's a reality in a couple of years as well.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
Yeah, no. Sorry, I made a weird face, but my weird face is kind of yes. I think that's.
I mean, we're already blurring the separation between with RSCs. People said this, like, we previously had the API and the front end because somebody thought that would be a good separation, and now we're bringing this back together. So why not go like the full mile and make a full stack framework out of it?
Yeah, I get it. Okay, so when you say like a couple of years, like my mind instantly goes to the fact that we are in store for another AI winter. Like the winter is coming for AI, like really fast. Like eventually this AI thing is going to tail out and all of that. And that's basically where tech is right now. It's just like big into AI. And when that collapses, like, yes, we're still going to have LLMs and we're still going to have all that stuff, but there's going to be a lot of people out of job. There's going to be a lot of folks that are, and the industry is going to have a winter. And so we're not going to see, like, you might be seeing the end of big framework advancements for a little while when that happens. So I don't know what we're going to get to with it, but It's hard
Me
to look
neither.
beyond that horizon of
Absolutely,
the coming AI winter.
You can't connect the dots looking forward, as the good old Steve said.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a couple of topics with you because I really love to get your view on these. But first, I had a question in my mind the whole time we talked, because you know a lot about different frameworks. And when you talked about RSC and other frameworks, is there anything comparable in like SvelteKit or other frameworks that is like RSC? Or is this just a React thing? I was just wondering if the other frameworks also try to do something like that.
So
I mean, there's Solid, there's Svelte. These are probably the most popular, right?
Yeah, but Solid and Svelte, they basically do similar kind of things. But then I'm trying to okay. The one that I think would most closely comparable would be like Quick, because what Quick is doing is it's actually attaching
it's streaming
data.
Right?
No, it's attaching data to each element. And then when you click on an element, it actually like loads the actual like JavaScript at that point, although it can do preloading and things like that. And so what happens is the page is basically inert when it comes down, but as you start to interact with it, it keeps on incrementally adding more JavaScript to the page. And there's the data that would need to be there for hydration is kind of attached to the actual component, that the actual like DOM element that would need that data. So it's incredibly efficient, but it's just kind of a different take on how to do that client versus server hydration thing. That's at the end of the day, that's what you need to do. You pre-compile the page on the server, you send it over, and now you got to run some JavaScript on the page, but right without the data that it got to build the page in the first place on the server, like the client really doesn't know anything, right? So you have to somehow bring the client up to speed with where the server was, and so that's this hydration thing, and like how they handle it is kind of different on a framework by framework basis. To be honest, I think that Solid and Svelte do something very, very similar. But I haven't like looked into it. I've sort of done Svelte and Solid, but I really didn't look into like the mechanics of it like that.
Upcoming video on
the
Blue Collar Coder channel.
Yeah.
You gotta do that.
Yeah, I did. I do the Svelte stuff every now and again. Like I did the Svelte runes stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I rebuilt Galaxy, or when I built Galaxies, I selected Svelte because it was the hottest thing back then. It was pretty cool. And the main problem right now is that I'm not actively using Svelte anywhere else. So this is the only thing, and it's really hard to maintain this. But with AI and Cursor, I'm able to add anything to my Svelte project.
And do you find that Cursor understands Svelte well enough?
For my needs enough, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like, okay, so Svelte 5 has runes, and I wonder if like Cursor is going to know to use runes. And this is actually something I've been talking to a bunch of folks about, was like when at the point where the AI models have been trained, they need to have like a whole set of code to look over, right? And if all the code out there that are examples for Svelte are like Svelte 4 examples, then Svelte 5 is going to come around with runes, and it's not going to know anything about that. It's going to be like, what are you talking about? I don't know what runes.
I mean, you can add the docs in Cursor, right? You can add specific docs, and then it will index them and use them. I did this for like all the Expo projects, Expo router, because it also in the beginning never worked for me, and it used all the wrong imports. But by now I'm kind of fine. Have you never used that feature?
I've never used that feature. Okay, this is changing my mind about this. Because,
absolutely,
and it does a good job with that.
From what I can see, yeah.
Okay.
All right. You gotta go into like the settings of Cursor. And
that's good, because I was really worried that we were going to see the end of AI of framework and language innovation, because
these
LLMs just aren't trained on the newer stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Give it a try. It's under Cursor settings, features. You got to scroll down, and there's like a docs section, and you can add new docs. I got like everything, like native Wind, and you can even add like API documentations for an API you want to use, and then it has that information included.
You give a URL? What do you do?
If you click add you just add a URL. And
okay. And it's sort of like magically just like...
I don't know what's going on in the background.
That's really cool. Okay.
Give it a try.
I love it. Thank you.
I'm happy to help. You also helped us because in this, what is it called? This State of JS Rising Stars survey?
Rising Stars survey.
Yeah, you talked about state management, a topic everyone loves.
Yeah.
I think Zustand was the clear winner in that category.
Thank you for that pronunciation. Of course, it works for you because you're German.
Yeah, I'm now doing the German way. Is it hard for you? You can't do that hard Z Zustand?
No. I can. Okay, so here I get grief about this. I'm getting grief both ways on this now. So when Zustand first came out, I was a fan. Like I was like, oh, this is great. I've never really been a big Redux guy, but like it was like light Redux that was like really good and accessible. And I'm like, oh, I love this. This is great. And so I did a video on it and I called it Zustin because I'm an American, and, everybody's like, oh yeah, this is great. But you're pronouncing this wrong. Well, not everybody, but like a few Germans like showed up and like, no, you got to pronounce this right. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go to Google Translate or whatever. I'm like, how do you pronounce this? And then Zustand. I'm like, okay, cool. All right. So then I do a couple more videos on it and I use that pronunciation. People are like, oh, that's great. Yeah, you're using the right pronunciation. That's great. And then like it's gotten so popular that there's this pushback on it that people are like, oh, Mr. Elitist over here is saying Zustand when it's really Zustin. Like what? Like I'm not being elitist. I'm being nice. Like that's the language. Like what?
Okay, so I feel like we can only go wrong with this. My approach was that I know, of course, the word. But I saw like you and other YouTubers say Zustand because you just can't say the word correctly in German. It's a hard word. And I was like, okay, if everyone's saying like that, I will do it the same way. So I said Zustand as well in one of my videos. And then people kept commenting, Simon, you're from Germany. Why are you pronouncing it like this? Right. I was like, what the heck?
You can't win.
I'm done with this. Right? Okay. Zustand and Zustand is the best state management library, at least from the survey.
The most rising popular star. Yes. Right. Which I totally understand. I mean, oh my God, it's definitely gone from being one of those things where a couple of years ago people were like, Zustand, what are you talking about? We use Redux to like now it's like, oh wow, lots of folks are using Zustand.
Yeah, it was kind of like a niche solution and now has become like the go-to thing. I think the second was Yotai. And you summed this up pretty well. Could you explain the difference between, I think you called it atomic state management, and what's the other word? It's like more like store-based, right?
Well, I mean, I've been calling Redux unidirectional since that was basically based on the Flux model. And so Redux, and that was unidirectional. And so Redux is unidirectional and Zustand followed that model. So I called that unidirectional. So that's how I got there. And then MobX would be like bidirectional. Like you set it and then whatever you observe it and all that. And then there's like there's event based, which would be like effector. And then there's atomic. And atomic, there's a couple. So the original library was Recoil that came out of Meta. That is now in maintenance mode, by the way. So like the original author has been like, they've left Meta, got laid off, whatever. And nobody inside of Meta is handling Recoil right now. So I actually just got a video in the can that's like Recoil alternatives, and for good reason. I love Recoil. That was great, but you need an alternative. So Daichi Kato saw Recoil and he's like, oh, I like this, but didn't like the implementation, which I kind of get. And so he made Jotai, and then Jotai just took off. And one of the really cool things, okay, so we'll talk about atoms and what this is. So basically the idea is like, think of it like a spreadsheet. Like you imagine that you've got your list of all your expenses, right? Whatever. And then you got your, I don't know, interest rate or something like that, right? So you got an array of items and you got an interest rate and you want to apply the interest rate to the items. So the array of items would be an atom, right? And then your interest rate would be an atom. And then you have another atom that would depend on those two atoms and would and give you the applied, like the total. Maybe
like a computed atom.
Yeah. You have a computed atom that would have like the sum of all of that array. And then you have another atom that would like derive from the sum and also the interest rate and have you be the total plus the interest rate or whatever. And the really cool thing is you change anything in that setup, that dependency grid or that dependency like graph of atoms, and it automatically updates, which I love. It always pissed me off that like we spent all this time doing Redux and Zustand and this sort of stuff, and all I want is like total of my cart to recompile all the time, or any time the cart has changed. I don't want to have to write code that's like, ooh, I'm updating the cart, now I'm updating the total. Like, because sometimes you'll miss it, right? Sometimes there'll be a bug and you just won't update the total as you change the cart. And yeah, you can make a function for that, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But like, this is just automatic. It's automagic, right? It just works implicitly. And I love that. So when I think about atomics, I think about like a spreadsheet. Like, okay, I've got and it's because like in the spreadsheet, you change that cell and then the sum, whatever, the other cells that have equations that are based on that cell automatically change. And it's beautiful. And so that's how atoms work. And I think that that's really, really cool. The other upside is that he's actually like integrated a whole bunch of things into it. Like as an example, you can have an asynchronous atom. So let's say you have like a user ID atom that has, a user ID in it. And then you've got another like atom that's the user information. And so it depends on the user ID. And when the user ID changes, the user atom asynchronously goes off, makes a fetch, gets the new user data, and then it's boom, it's done. It's automatic.
That's nice.
Really, really cool. And so what he can do, what he's also done is like he's integrated with React Query. So you can have an atom that is a React Query based atom. You can have an X state based atom. He's done all of these integrations with other tooling to make it so that you can make these atoms that are just richer and richer and richer in the ecosystem. The downside of all this is that debugging an atom-based state management model at scale is a nightmare because you never really know. Like, yeah. I mean, it does all the cycling things or tries to figure out if there's dependency cycles and stuff like that. But I shudder to think of the dependency thing at scale. That being said, are her applications really so big that like that's a thing? Like, and you can also have like different graphs of different atoms, right? You can have an atom that handles your checking account, and you can have an atom that handles like your two-factor authentication flow or whatever. And those two things don't even talk to each other. They're just like, so you keep it small. Like I'm all about keeping things small. Small is good.
So they have some major differences. Like if we now look at, let's say, Zustand and Yotai. Is there
chalk and cheese, man?
Is there a scenario where you could see like, or say we use both in one application, or is this totally mixed up shit?
That's mixed up shit right there. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, I think you should stick with one. Find the state manager that works for your model, and then stick with that. And if you are looking at like, I'm going to build an app. And state management is really a thing that I want to geek out on and try and understand, like whatever. Make sure that you build out like a POC with different state management flavors that has all like the edge cases that you need covered in it. So you're like, oh, okay, so this is how we do this kind of data, and this is how we do this kind of data. And you can kind of come up with a set of patterns so that as you're developing the app, right, you've got the whole documentation of like, okay, if you need a dependency, if you need one thing to do calculate it or derive value on something else, here's how we do it. I should also say the atomic model has gone a little bit beyond Yotai as well. There's also nano stores, which does atoms, and also legend state does atoms.
Yeah, I tried that one.
So yeah, a bunch of different libraries are going on this atom model.
Can you give a clear recommendation, like this atomic model of state management worked great for these kind of applications and stuff like Zustand for something else, or is it more like the editor, more of flavor and what you vibe with?
So Recoil initially was trying to like fill like a little stopgap of we just want a little bit of external state. Like, okay, we've made this big app. And we've got data in this part of the tree, and we want it over in this part of the tree, and we could do a context thing, but we've already got like 15,000 providers at the top of this app. We don't want to do that. So let's go and just have this little atom of data that's just like kind of there, and then we can depend on it, and it just works, and it kind of share. And so the way to kind of get around like data sharing between two different disparate parts of the application. And I thought that was really cool and elegant. And so I think that's the kind of model that I would look at. It's like when I approach state management in an application, I'm always like the simplest thing first, like keep it local if you can. And if you can't keep it local, then is it fast moving or is it slow moving? If it's fast moving, then maybe like a state manager, like a Zustand or a Jotai. Or if it's slow moving, like a context thing, like the theme or the dark mode, light mode, right? Or the user ID, right? Yeah, sure. Put that thing in the context, because like when you change, like everything's going to need to change. So there you go. Yeah. So, but man, that is like the classic question of like, what state management should I use for this model versus that model? And I don't think anybody has the answer to that, to be honest. Like, it's all contextual. It's all, and there's all other kind of externalized factors of like, if you're a Redux shop, like, do you really, is that the table that you want to flip over? It's like how to do state management. Like,
no, certainly
right.
Not.
I don't know. Bigger fish to fry. Like, oh, we're also using emotion. Oh crap. Okay. Well, let's fix that problem first. Cause that's killing us.
It's probably also a bit like the Flutter was React Native thing. You can talk to different people and they will either say Flutter is the best thing or React Native is the best thing. I don't know. I'm following some dude on Twitter or X, and he's like, since a couple of days, it looks like he's on a quest to explore whether React Native or Flutter is better. And he posts all these like statistics and stuff. And I don't know. Once you look at 2 of the posts, you're going to see like 10 of those posts on X show up all the time. So
I would love to see that. And if you can shoot me over that link, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I just externally, I thought that, like, to be honest, I thought that Flutter was kind of having issues. Like, you got the team is not well staffed at Google anymore, and now you got this weird thing where it wasn't like they weren't handling issues all that fast enough, and then so they've now like forked Flutter, which seems like externally like just bonkers.
It is absolutely, to me, from the outset as well. I said this as well. I did a video at the beginning of the year that now's the time for React Native. And this is also what I brought up, like this whole forking gate and like not putting enough resources into it. And it just sounds strange. I mean, coming from React Native, I just think this model is superior, that we render to actual native controls while Flutter is like drawing every pixel on the screen.
It's not
at some point it can just fail. Yeah.
I mean, at one point, like, it's a labor intensive thing that if iOS comes out with some new system feature, you've got to go and re-implement that pixel perfect in Flutter. That's just maintenance hell. And so you have a highly maintenance dependent system that then, they then start understaffing. That's a problem.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think the people, the shops using Flutter, it's probably because they want this unique UI across Android and iOS. So you can have the exact same UI on Android and iOS with Flutter, which is not adapting to the underlying OS. So some applications want this for like brand identity, for example. Like the BMW application, it kind of makes sense. They have their own CI and they just want to do their own shit. So we're not using the default tab bar. No, definitely not. In those cases,
talking about like the actual like mobile app, not the dashboard app or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's like the BMW mobility drive something app. Yeah,
I don't know BMW. I have a Subaru.
No. Yeah,
my car costs a fraction of that.
We're running almost out of time, but I still want to get you an answer to at least 2 or 3 questions.
Hit me.
Yeah, let's do a quick round.
Yeah.
You tested one. We told about like the pool shop thing in the beginning.
Yeah.
What was your impression of one? Can it be a React Native alternative?
React Native alternative?
Or an Expo alternative, yeah. More like that.
Possibly. I got in a whole bunch of trouble about it because, and you just sort of like out of the sidelines, or not even making out of the sidelines is like, hey, one is like stealing all of our stuff. And I'm like,
well, you got into that conflict?
Well, no, I'm just like, third party guy. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, there was something going on between him and Nate.
I just let them feud. I was like, okay, not my problem. Not my monkeys, not my circus. Go. But I think that if I was a small shop and I was looking to build out something like a POC to go and take to investors, I wanted a few customers on it. Sure, go make it happen. But eventually, you're probably going to need to port out of that. So your next step would probably be a monorepo where you'd start extracting the logic into shared packages, and then you'd like make a next app or make a remix app or whatever for the web and go from there. But that's if you've got funding and if you get more people and that sort of stuff. But if you're like a 1-person, 2-person shop and you want to go make like a really cool thing to like, I don't know, whatever, some startup thing based on AI, of course, agentic AI, and it's got to be across web, native, all that. Sure, go for it. But apparently now Expo too, so go for it.
Yeah, that's the truth. Like you can pretty much do the same at this point.
Yeah, and I think that was Evan's point. Was like,
why
not just do Expo?
Nate forked Expo router at some point, and then it made changes, and they had a huge discussion on this on Twitter. It was like, almost like the WordPress drama.
Yeah, right. That's a whole thing.
Intense. That's intense. Yeah, let's see how this continues in 2025. Okay, React 19. Mm-hmm. It is, if you start an Expo application today while we record, not yet included. It will be pretty soon.
Yeah, because
what is the stable. I'm not super into like these kind of releases. What is the coolest thing about React 19 that people should take an eye on or look at? Or if there's more than one, you can also name it.
I think like use is the underrated like hook of the year kind of thing.
And something related to promises or something?
Yeah. Well, use can do two things. It can watch promises or it can watch context. And it just makes it really like, it's just an entirely different flow to building your kind of app and how the data moves around the app. You're passing like promises as props to your components, and then they're using use, and you can use it in combination with suspense. And I think there's a whole bunch of patterns here that we're going to have to develop over the years of using it. And so it's been really interesting, like talking, like I want to do like a use versus use query thing, because a lot of folks when they first see use are like, ooh, can I drop React query? The answer being no, you can't do that. But it is very interesting. And I would say it's like other than like forms management, it's probably the biggest like single change that you're really going to experience with React 19, unless you go with RSCs, because that's the thing. Like React 19 is actually like mostly, I would say, like the RSC release.
Yeah. I think I saw use and it looked promising, so I'll definitely go back into that.
Look at you. I see what you did there.
Oh, yeah.
Womp womp.
And the last thing for today is I just heard that on the front end fire, you mentioned you wrote your own Chrome extension, which you look at every morning related to news and like catching keywords. Yeah. What is this about? How does it work? Can I have it as well?
It's very customized to me. It's like, particular sites that I go to, and it just like, there are sites that have like, long lists of feature, like articles and stuff. And I'm just looking for items in the titles. I mean, it is a lot easier than you'd imagine. I mean, literally it is like DOM element. Like all I'm doing is I create like a page, like a list. There's a particular parlance in like Chrome extensions. I think there's an embedded page script, and all I do is I just basically fire it up. I look to find all the title elements, and then I just like do a regex in their inner text. And if that's the case, and I find it, then I actually like bracket that text in a span and give it a big bold red color and on white background, that sort of thing. I'm like, oh, okay, there it is. And so like 6 a.m. before I've had my coffee, it's like, these are the articles that I have keywords that like really ping for me. And I want to go and like ping, 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 ping.
Is this like a local plugin, or
did you totally.
Can you do this? Like you can do your own local Chrome extension stuff easily? Is it like dropping in one file somewhere in Chrome, or?
So there are boilerplates out there. I used like a TypeScript boilerplate that had basically boilerplate parts for all of the different things a Chrome extension can do. You can do like the pop-up thing. You can do like the page script. You can do a bunch of different like things. And I just literally nuked everything in there except the page script. And then they had a build process, and the build process does this thing where it kind of packages it up and in their like kind of packaged version. It's got like a manifest, and it's got like the bundle and all that. And then in Chrome, you go into your manage extensions, you go into developer mode, and you say load, and then up comes this cool button like load unpackaged or something extension. And so you hit that, you navigate to that directory, and then it looks at the directory, says, "Cool, this is a signature that I understand as a extension," and it loads it into your browser, and that's it. That's all. Boom, done. It's really great. Nice. Yeah. And I've used this trick a lot when it came to, I worked at various companies where we wanted to make a sale. We were a SaaS or something like that. And we wanted to make a sale to some other company. And I would go make a Chrome extension that would basically camp on their UI so that when I brought up that page in my browser, it would run my code, talk to our services, inject a UI onto their page that would then show our stuff on their site. Right. And that was very compelling from a sales perspective. It was like, oh, wow. Like you've already done the work. It's like, no, I haven't really done the work because this is just running locally. I mean, you'd have to do the work, but this is an idea of what it might look like.
This is fun. I think this is going to be my next side project I will tinker on. I always wanted to do a Chrome extension. Actually, I heard like people making real money with Chrome extensions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, I was at a conference once and I was like talking to these guys and they're like, our whole company is building Chrome extensions and you shouldn't install any of them unless you know what they are. I'm like, yeah, no, duh. Yeah. I mean, Honey being a good example of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are intensely powerful. But I mean, you do have to ask for permissions though. Right. I mean, there is like part of that manifest is you have to say, I want to be able to do this. And I want to be able to do that. And that's so that when, you load it up in Chrome, like you can inform the user as to what they're getting into with this thing potentially.
Yeah.
When it comes to my local stuff, like the nice thing is I can go and constrain that Chrome extension to only running on certain sites. And so I don't have a fear that it's going to run on, I don't know, Meta or X unless I want it to. But yeah, I just constrain it to the sites that I look at, and so that's very nice.
It's very nice. I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
By the way, there's one more thing I wanted to mention at the end. In the fashion of Front End Fire, I want to end today's episode with one thing that made me happy this week because I really love that section. Maybe I got something as well.
Sure.
My thing for the week is yesterday I was sending out an email with Apple. And I typed the usual stuff, and here's a screenshot attached. You can look at it, and I hit send, and I got a pop-up, and I was like, yeah, whatever. What's wrong? I click close because I don't read the pop-up. I click send again, and I'm like, what is this? And then the pop-up said like, hey, you said you included an image, but there's no attachment. Would you like to send it anywhere included? And I was like,
boom. Yeah.
Millions of emails and embarrassment saved. With this little snippet, some genius at Apple invented this. It is incredible. It just appeared. It's just there. Such a tiny thing, but man,
didn't they have like a drunk thing like a couple years ago on Gmail where it was trying to detect if you were sending an email when you're a little bit out there, and maybe this isn't the email you want to send, or maybe that was something that people wanted, but Okay, so what's making me happy this week actually is the dump. And so in America, we've got these the dump. You take your excess stuff that you don't need anymore, and you take it. You either give it away or you take it to the dump. Actually, I could also say buy nothing, which is another a service that you put out. Like, hey, I'm giving this thing away for free. I no longer use it, and I've been doing a lot of spring cleaning, getting rid of a lot of stuff, and that feels really good. Like I now walk into my garage. And it's well organized and everything's where it should be. And I'm like, it's like, I used to look around at these things and be like, I need to fix that. I need to fix that. I need to fix that. And finally, just spending the time to fix it is actually really, really good and really cathartic.
I love that. Yeah, I did the same. I try to do this at the end of the year as well, or in January, or also sometimes ongoing, especially honestly, I wear 3 T-shirts and 2 favorite jeans, and that's probably the stuff I wear. I could probably get rid of 90% of the stuff in there that I might wear when the occasion is right. But overall, it just troubles you. Yeah,
I love
get rid of things.
Yeah, this old piece of advice I got, which was at the end of the year, like December 30th or whatever, go and take everything in your cabinet, in your area where you've got your hanging shirts and all that sort of stuff. Sorry, brain words. So all your shirts and everything, and then turn the hangers around so that they're the wrong way, like, you know, and then at the end of the year, like, and then when you use it, turn it around and put it in the right way. And then at the end of the year, you'll know, like, oh, I never used that shirt. Like it's been all year and I haven't used it, so I'm probably never going to use it.
Yeah. That stuff.
Yeah. You'll get rid of 90% of your clothes that way. I'm like you. I've got like this massive set of shirts and stuff, of which I use 3. I've used this Dino like hoodie. And now like I talk to the Dino guys. I'm like, you know, I know you don't have this logo anymore, but my wife loves this shirt. Can you give her a shirt that's got it? And they're like, yeah, go for it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Man, Jack, thank you so much for taking the time to appear on the show today.
It's been really fun, man.
It was awesome. Like you have such a giant knowledge from the past and from today. It's just a pleasure. Like you always have a backstory, whether it's Recoil or Next.js or anything. It's just amazing, really. I'd love to have you again on the show in the future.
Love it. Sounds great.
What should people check out? How can they follow you? How can they find you online? Where should they go?
Yeah, check out Front End Fire. We've got a Discord channel where you can talk to us. There's frontendfire.com, I think, or I can't remember exactly the URL, but and also there's my Blue Collar Coder YouTube channel. So love to get to 200,000 on that. That would be great. And we post weekly on there, all kinds of new stuff. So we're taking a look recently at like TC39 updates, but there's also going to be some stuff for, I think I'm going to do a review of windsurf. So all kinds of cool topics on there, but always unique content. So this isn't just me like reading an article or reacting to something. Like this is like, I do the research every week and I put together something. So yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. Highly recommended. All links will be in the show notes. So people make sure subscribe to Front End Fire, subscribe to the Blue Collar Coder on YouTube, and of course, stay subscribed to Rocket Ship as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jack. Catch you next time.
Catch you next time.
Thanks for joining today's episode. My goal is to share interesting stories and insights into the world of React Native development. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. And on Spotify and Apple, you can leave up to a 5-star review. Because podcasts, and especially niche podcasts like this, are hard to find, subscribing and leaving a review does help me a lot. On top of that, check out my React Native courses on galaxies.dev that cover a variety of topics from getting started to building and publishing your mobile app. Finally, you can share today's episode with a friend or colleague who would enjoy the topic of the show. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, find me on X or leave a comment on YouTube. And last but not least, thank you for listening and happy coding. Simon.